It's incredible what radio can do. There's a lot of magic in that. It makes you feel like things are possible.
In an era of algorithms, streaming giants and social media overwhelm, there's been a quiet revolution happening across Australian airwaves for decades. It's a revolution driven by people with passion who give their time in service to Australian music. Community Radio, Our National Sound, is the story of how community radio in Australia has been a constant support and safe haven for Australian artists. We'll hear from just a few, telling a story echoed by many more.
I had a moment where I realised the connective power of music, that it transcended language, and I think that was a strong moment for me, just being over in another part of the world.
Sarah Blasko has been a defining figure in Australian music for over 2 decades. That moment of realisation came in her teens, on an overseas missionary trip with her Pentecostal church.
When I was about 17 or 18, I was really religious. We would go on trips overseas to kind of try and win people over to God. And I went over with a group of musicians, and we were singing songs that were written by all people from all over the world, and also a few songs that we'd written ourselves and hymns and things like that.
Once back at home, other shifts started happening. For a young woman stepping away from strict religious expectations, this was a revelation.
But also there were just moments when you get a bit of encouragement from somebody, like a teacher or a friend or something. And I think I started to listen to music that was all about self-expression, not kind of perfection. And that also spurred me on.
Originally from the South Australian capital of Adelaide, Alex Cameron of Bad Dreems found music making as a fantastic counterpoint to studying medicine, entering a whole new social scene where he would find his people outside of the operating theatre.
So I guess it was a gradual process. Started getting involved in bands in the mid-2000s. The idea of being involved in a quote-unquote industry was not something that was on my mind. I just wanted to be in a band and be part of a community of other bands in Melbourne.
Music got a hold on Melbourne-based Moju early, after thinking they were on another career path. Moju, who is proudly Wiradjuri, Filipino and queer, grew up in regional New South Wales, surrounded by music and creativity.
You know, as an early bloomer in that respect, like I always had an interest in the arts, like from a very young age. Like as a child, like I was determined that I was going to be an illustrator. And that was my thing, and I was interested in books and stuff. But music was always around. Music was a huge part of my family. So probably from the time I started high school, I was like, I want to be in a band. And I probably took it all way too seriously from a really young age. And that was it. I was just kind of on that path, very single-minded, right from adolescence. You know, even as a teenager, I had a garage band in high school and played shows to some degree, like kind of had management. And I think when I was around 16, we'd supported Jimmy Little on his Messenger tour with Karma County. So that was probably like my first real show.
After high school, Moju went from dreaming to scheming.
I went and studied a Bachelor of Commercial Music Production, studied music business management, kind of was very, I'm taking this really seriously and I kind of want to know how the industry works, what the ins and outs are and what do I need to do. So I don't really remember there being a time where I wasn't kind of thinking about it in that way, like how to make a career kind of work.
But not everyone had such momentum early on. For many young musicians, the path felt impossible because they simply couldn't see themselves reflected in the music they loved.
I definitely always wanted to be a musician, but didn't really think it was a realistic or viable career path. So I never really seriously considered it. When I was at school, like I played guitar all through high school, but all my favourite bands were like dude indie rock bands. And there weren't really many women. I guess there were no role models.
Annie Hamilton, who would later form Sydney folk band Little May in 2012, could count on one hand the women she saw making the kind of music she wanted to make.
And I especially just had no connection to the Australian music scene. You know, I was listening to Triple J, but I didn't know anyone else who was even into the kind of music I was into. So I kind of just, throughout high school and as a teenager, always played guitar and loved music, but never thought of it as a career.
Body Type formed in Sydney in 2015, with two of its members, Sophie McComish and Georgia Wilkinson-Derhams, originally from Perth. They started their band by learning their instruments together.
There weren't heaps of women or female bands going on in Sydney at that time, so we kind of just wanted to make a bit of noise and give it a go.
And when women did start bands, the comments started up too.
But even then, like when we started Little May, there was so much commentary about how we were all women. You know, everyone was like, oh my God, it's a girl band. It was like this crazy thing.
For hip-hop artists, the obstacles in Australia were different. Dobby, Ryan Clapham, had been studying music since childhood, classical music from the age of 7 and jazz drumming from 14. But when it came to making hip-hop, the Australian music industry didn't know what to do with him.
When I wanted to have a crack at it was actually quite later in my adult life, maybe 2017 when I took myself seriously, as opposed to when I started making music since age 7. And that's mainly because for a hip hop artist, I didn't necessarily see a pathway for me until 2017 when I could start to see it being represented on radio and TV and social media.
Elle Fresh the Lion felt that same isolation growing up in southwestern Sydney.
I was in my own bubble, in my own bedroom making music, and genuinely thought I was the only person in the country making rap music, you know what I mean? Like, I was just so naive. It wasn't until I started performing at my school, and then just at like whatever kind of multicultural kind of gig days, or we had a thing called Variety Night where you could perform if you wanted to, and I would do that. And from there I had the first kind of show where I was on a lineup with other hip hop acts, was in Campbelltown for Fisher's gig. They had specifically set up a hip hop stage for that year's event, and that was the first time I met other local artists, that I really understood that there was a local scene.
For Dobby, his first radio airplay should have been a milestone moment. Instead, it became a lesson in how the mainstream music industry viewed hip-hop at the time.
My friend texted me in the morning of like a school day and was like, hey, they're playing your song, you know, they're playing your song. And before this, it was just on MySpace. And I was like, oh my God, this is my big break. And so I tuned into the ABC, Illawarra, I think it was. And they were talking about the song, and they were like, if you know who sang the song, please call in. I was like, I got to call in.
Imagine, your song is being played on the national broadcaster, and they're asking listeners to help identify the artist. It's supposed to be your big break.
I had made a song that was kind of tied in with a little bit of, you know, the narrative of what Warilla, the town where I grew up, was like, in terms of all the gang violence and in terms of all the street violence. And so that being a hip hop song, it wasn't like, let's foster this artist. It was more like, let's interrogate this artist, you know, and kind of say, what do you have to say for yourself? So I feel like that alone kind of told me where the stigma around hip hop music in general, and then where I was placed in the grand scheme of things.
While Dobby was having his first low as an artist, Elle Fresh had a huge moment early on to set him on his path as a career rapper.
The serious moment I had of I want to do this as a career came at 21 years old, and I was fortunately chosen to tour with Nas, who's a hip hop icon. It still is one of my favorite artists of all time, and it was his first headline tour of Australia, and somehow I got picked to be the national support act. It was the only show I got to stand and stay backstage, so I got to stand side of stage while he was performing, and was just in awe of what I was witnessing. And I very much recall standing there and being like, this is what I want to do as a career. If I can be on this stage now at 21, haven't really even thought of taking this seriously, and this opportunity is falling into my lap, like, wow, just imagine what I can do, and I'm hungry for this. I want to do this.
Going full-time into music after finishing his medical degree, Alex from Bad Dreams got a stark perspective in being a musician in Australia pretty quickly. Success didn't mean the end of the struggle.
I quite quickly realised that was going to be very difficult, and so music is a career for me, but I have another career which provides me with income. Music is a second, doesn't really provide me with income, but it's still a sort of career.
Fulfillment versus finance is always the big conundrum in Australian music. There had to be another way to think about a music career in Australia.
I was never really interested in a super kind of commercial career. I was very interested in how do you have a sustainable career that's meaningful within the Australian music industry. Like, I was thinking very locally in that respect.
Australian artists are always looking for support, not just from their audience, but places where support wasn't conditional and there would always be a home for what they do. For these artists, that was community radio. Local and meaningful, made by people who give over their time to make that support happen. There are over 400 community radio stations across Australia, where on average 37% of all music played is Australian.
When I started listening to it, there was no Instagram or TikTok. It was like before social media. So there was no other way to discover music other than like street press and friends making you mixtapes and FBI. And FBI just felt like this like shining beacon of like, oh, there are people who are like me. When I was in Little May, my old band, FBI were like very early supporters, and that was just like so exciting. That I can remember just all of us like jumping up and down squealing. You know, it was crazy being on the radio.
When I first started playing in bands in Melbourne, I suddenly found a place where I belonged, and I think that the beauty of music, independent music communities, to me, is that they provide a place for very disparate people who maybe don't fit in other places. They're generally free from hierarchy, they're generally very accepting places, and they're generally very progressive places. And so community radio really is an extension of that.
For Moju, community radio wasn't just about exposure, it was about connection.
When I first moved to Newcastle, one of the first things that I did was actually get involved in community radio to kind of embed myself in the art scene and connect with what was going on there in the music industry.
Sophie from Bodytype found Perth's 6RTR from going to their long-running In the Pines festival. From there, she was hooked. There was a new way to discover music that not only meant something to her, but showed that there was a way to make it herself and be heard.
Pines was like the music event on the cultural calendar. It was such a massive deal when they got played on RTR. All the presenters had this like esteem and prestige around them, and my music taste was so influenced by what was hot on RTR.
Leading up to her massive debut album, The Overture and the Underscore, in 2004, Sarah Blasko found herself among a small crowd of people happily squeezed inside a studio to launch Sydney's FBI radio. She knew she was part of something special.
That day is very strong in my memory. I met Darren Hanlon that day, and we ended up all moving together in a share house. A bunch of different musicians, my friend Ben Fletcher and Jess Keeley, who was a presenter on FBI and then Triple J, and then now she's a manager within the music industry, and all the guys from Peabody and Blue Bottle Kiss and 78 Saab. And at the time it felt like it very much represented my musical community or introduced me to all of these people.
Dobby also found that having his music played on FBI didn't come with any interrogation or suspicion. it was actually sought after.
There were two presenters at the time, Sally and Erica. They played my song that I put on Facebook or something. And so they had taken that audio. It wasn't on Spotify or anything. And they had broadcast it, which is really, really special and something I didn't actually realize could be done.
For Elfresh the Lion, community radio gave you space to grow into being an artist. Nobody needs to be the finished product right from the get-go.
So you need to have reps in a live show setting. Same thing with radio, you know, like and learning about radio, how to speak on radio, how to do an interview, what works, what doesn't work. The community radio landscape is so important for that because it teaches you as an artist about those little nuances and gives you an opportunity to also make mistakes.
Right at the beginning, it was everything because the first people that play music and community radio, local radio. And to me, that was again like a very encouraging thing, you know, when people want to play your music or the person that offers you your first show, that sort of feels like the pinnacle in that moment.
The Australian music landscape is a small and crowded one. It's hard to get noticed within a shrinking set of options. Traditional media doesn't afford much room to grassroots independent culture, and streaming platforms are continually shown to have agendas that don't align with the future of music. Even some of the bigger names in Australian music, like Sarah Blasko, constantly come up against barriers and gatekeepers.
Well, I've had almost no commercial airplay. So my whole career has been built on community radio and ABC stations. But I was told right at the beginning in 2004 that they were already playing one female Australian artist and there was no room for another female Australian artist to be played. And that was as cutthroat as it really is.
Members of Body Type started their own label Blossom Rot 5 years ago, putting their time into releasing music from local artists they love. Running an independent label is no mean feat. For all the time you spend on your own in your bedroom getting a record together, you need people around you on the other side of it all. Independent labels could not exist without community radio.
We're running the label because we can see so many flaws in the industry, which I've learned from my experience in Body Type. We're kind of like, we've got great relationships with community radio. That's something we can almost guarantee is get you guys played on community radio. And sometimes that's the brand new baby emerging artists. That's their hopes and dreams. They're like, we just really want to get a spin on our favourite show on 2SER. We're like, well, we can do that for you.
Elfresh the Lion noticed the impact pretty quickly.
If we would go and do a performance live on air at a community radio station the day before the show, we were selling a minimum of 20, 30 tickets to the show the next night because of that performance. And that's huge. When you're touring and you're traveling and you're trying to break into new spaces, that means the world to you, especially early on in your career.
Go onto the website for Endless Recordings and you'll see a mission statement. The label, co-run by Bad Dreams' Alex Cameron, considers it vital that musicians are provided with a place to develop their art and make the best work they can.
For example, getting played on Triple R is almost more of a tastemaker in our world. Once we started to get played on some of the Triple R shows, that was more of a thrill because we knew that the people there were genuine tastemakers and music fans. Community radio, you just send an email to a presenter and invariably they'll show a lot of interest, even though you're a tiny operation. And the thing that always strikes me about community radio is almost the smaller they get, the more pertinent this is. The amount of effort they've put into preparing for those interviews, the genuine passion you can hear coming through for music. You feel like you're speaking to a fellow music fan.
Moju says the people you find at community radio become your people for life.
With community radio, it doesn't matter your age or your gender or your identity in any respect. If you're making music and people want to play it and people want to hear it, it's going to get played, whether it's like happening now or it's 10 years down the track.
Over 2 decades ago, the Australian Music Radio Airplay project started sending out CDRs of Australian music to community stations all over the country. The initiative became better known as AMRAP, and now amrap.org.au connects thousands of community broadcasters to great new Australian music each week. AMRAP has helped countless artists reach audiences with vital airplay from community radio, which is often the first place any new Australian music gets heard. It's helped create far-reaching fan bases for artists, getting them heard in rural and remote areas where community radio thrives. Fresh the Lion and DOBBY were both early adopters.
The AMRAP platform is just a game changer, and I think it's so fortunate to have that, to be able to disseminate music so quickly and efficiently to community radio stations and radio hosts. So it just makes it less of a stressful job. AMRAP for me is it's just so simple. Basically, you upload your song, you put in the information, and it's there for anybody to be able to grab if they're looking for your music. So you can search based on your genre and style of music in different parts of the country and see who plays your style of music and flick them messages. Off the back of uploading to AMRAP and submitting music, have a couple of hosts who tag you on social media that they're playing your song on their show, then starts that relationship. And that's then something I factor into when I'm traveling.
That was definitely something early on that I was like, everyone kept talking about, you've got to put songs on AMRAP. It gets played regionally, which at the time is kind of something that I thought, well, that's a greater reach and it sounds like a great program.
For Annie Hamilton, AMRAP opened up the world of community radio more widely than she ever imagined, from major cities to small regional towns.
When I first went solo, I was doing my own PR and I uploaded my music to AMRAP, and then I sent it around to all the community stations that I felt like were likely to play it. SYN, 3RRR, RTR in Perth, 4ZZZ, 2SER. And I would say all of them have been really supportive over the last few years that I've been doing my solo project, and there are presenters at those stations who have come to my shows, who have played my music, so it feels like actually having a relationship with a person who's a champion of my project. It feels really personal.
Community radio is seen by independent artists as an antidote in the age of the algorithm.
The fans that are listening are so much more valuable than fans that hear you in passing on, I don't know, some Spotify algorithm or whatever. I feel like it's the fans that are intentionally turning the dial, or the ones that are going to be buying the vinyl and coming to the show and wanting to support the artist by buying merch, and they're an engaged, valuable fan.
In the age of algorithms and the music scene, or for consumers, it's there's so much music and it's so overwhelming and you don't know where to start, so you end up just listening to the same thing over again, and almost we need curation more than ever. And I think we need grassroots, small-scale, local communities, not just online, but in person and on ground, more than ever, to counter the crazy online algorithm overwhelm. The last few years, it just feels like everyone has just turned to TikTok and social media and Spotify algorithms for music discovery. I think everyone's starting to get really tired of that and overwhelmed and sick of the algorithms just always spitting out the same thing.
Community radio has never been one size fits all, and that's the way Moju likes it.
With radio, you know that you've got presenters coming in who are genuine music lovers, who are really passionate about music and the artists that make the music, and that their curation is really thoughtful and considered, and there's intention behind what they're doing.
For Sarah Blasko and Annie Hamilton, community radio all comes down to the people.
For this last record, I did an incredibly extensive track-by-track interview on 2SER. It was a really satisfying thing to do, and I want to talk about what I do. I don't want to just talk about myself. I like to talk about how we made something, that excites me.
I think also there's something that you get when everyone is volunteering, or when it's majority volunteered, that people are there because they're passionate and they love it and they want to be there and they really care. Otherwise they wouldn't be there. So the kind of people who are working and presenting and running these stations are the dream music fans.
And for First Nations artists like DOBBY, community radio plays an even more crucial role.
From a First Nations perspective, that is another link in the chain of Black resistance and Black, representation.
I see it as an antidote to the algorithm. And I firmly believe that curation and good music journalism, both of which are still in effect on community radio, are vital to a music community. That's the role that community radio plays, and as well as just being one of the pillars of that community, which is struggling at the moment and under pressure from all these other forces.
The struggle is real. Consumption of Australian music sits at less than 10%. Media options have shrunken enormously, and overseas-owned platforms don't see Australian music as key to their business model. Alex from Bad Dreems continues to tell the tale.
What were once the tastemakers and the gatekeepers for people to discover music, including the industry, things like music writers, music press, record stores, kind of don't exist anymore. You previously had people that were motivated by taste or artistic merit that were the gatekeepers of new music. Now, it's a capital-driven algorithm that is filtering all the music that's being made.
Bad Dreems' Alex Cameron sees the industry splintering.
The community around local and Australian music is being dissolved. And my concern with streaming algorithms, with the touring conglomerates that are from overseas, is that the top end of the industry is going to thrive. However, the independents and the grassroots sector is going to just atrophy.
It's a bleak picture for the Australian music industry. More and more, art and commerce need to match up.
It's either like I do a show and lose money, or I say no, but then I really want to play shows because I love playing shows more than anything. And I think that's also why we're just not seeing bands progress. It's like we have now like a lack of headliners. All the new bands that are coming through don't have that training ground of like little shows, constant little touring festivals to actually grow and expand.
Body Type have toured globally and released 3 albums, yet they share the same frustrations.
I just have no idea how any musician makes money anymore. I have no idea. You're paying to play, essentially, and it just gets to the point where it's like, what is the point? And especially when you know that you're being booked because you are ticking some diversity quota because you're a band of all women.
For DOBBY, the current state of play will inevitably lead to darker places.
We're losing a narrative that we don't understand our Indigenous narrative, let alone our own Australian narrative. So that feeds racism, like straight up.
My main concern is that we're losing diversity and we're losing the spectrum of music in the independent music community that makes it rich. We're just going to have very beige, rounded off, middle of the road art, and I don't think that does society any favours at all.
So if community radio is so vital to Australian music, why does it remain chronically under-resourced? Elfresh the Lion lays it out plain and simple.
I think we kind of just take it as a given, like that it's there and that maybe we take it for granted. It already is transformative for communities, and it already is for some people the very beginnings of their career in music. Imagine if it was well resourced from the top down, like just how much it could mean to local community. I think of community radio as the lifeblood of, I guess, the music industry. It's there. It's what feeds the rest of the ecosystem. I'd struggle to see a music scene without a strong community radio ecosystem, because it does hold the rest of the industry up. It's already tough for artists now. I can't imagine what it would be like without community radio.
Awareness is one of the biggest challenges facing community radio. Young artists raised in the streaming era often don't even know community radio exists.
The artists that we work with, young teenagers between the ages of 15 to 18, because it's direct to social media, they don't know about radio. They will have heard of Triple J Unearthed, and that's because of their high school initiatives. Unless they've had some sort of engagement with their local radio station, they're not aware that community radio is out there.
Through mentoring programs, L-Fresh helps young artists discover community radio.
We're in a program at the moment where we're going to introduce a bit of that process to them. We've introduced them to MRAP, and so they become more aware, and we tell them how to do that.
Moju knows firsthand how important that early support is. Without community radio, they might not have continued as an artist.
I just wouldn't want to be an artist that was entering into this industry right now without community radio. I think there's a lot of pressure on young artists to come as this really polished, straight out the gate. And I think, community radio was such an important part of my development as an artist.
Also, for Moju, community radio supports artists as they get older, change, and make different work.
When artists get a little bit older and they've done it a few times, that's when they start making their best art. And I don't think that people become less relevant as artists as they age, and I think you can only hear that on community radio.
Sarah Blasko worries that without space to develop, artists won't evolve.
Because I think you can become very one-dimensional if you don't have that time to talk and think about why you do what you do and the details of it, because that's the joy of what you do. It's the experience and the little projects and the little details that actually is what you end up remembering years later. Well, for me, it's been a huge part of my career until now, when everyone tells me that radio doesn't matter anymore. Radio really matters to me. It just fosters like a really nice sense of discovery, a sense of something that's just very immediately where you are, it meets you where you are.
Like the song goes, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
You're always going to have these stadium-filling artists because that earns a lot of people a lot of money, but if you lose the grassroots thing, whether it be the venue or the local radio station, they are the parts that are telling our community stories. They're the parts that are advocating for marginalised. It's the way marginalised people can tell their stories. And if we neglect that part of our music ecosystem, that will be gone. But once it's gone, then you'd realise how valuable it was.
Community Radio, Our National Sound, was produced by Andrew Kadori for the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia. Sound engineers were Tiff Gardner and Cameron Menegoni. Music you heard throughout came from Marlophone, Buddy Glass, Lyndon Pike, Tim Koch, Emmanuel Menag, and Alexis Armitage, along with the featured artists. Artwork by Rachel Kibblewhite. Community Radio, Our National Sound, was made as part of the Australian Research Council project Community Music Radio, building the music media ecosystem. Thanks to the research team, Shane Homan, Susan Ford, and Heather Anderson, and our partners, the Community Broadcasting Foundation, Music Australia, and APRA AMCOS. Supporting community radio is great for Australian music. Listen up and get involved. If you're an artist, get your music on amrap.org.au. I'm Beth Tracy, and it's been a pleasure to bring you Community Radio, Our National Sound.